Just in case you didn't know, this meeting is being recorded. All right. So welcome again, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and pull the PowerPoint up, and I'm going to get started with that. And that's also to sort of guide my thinking a little bit in my conversation. But again, if you have a question, please interrupt me. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Sorry. All right. All right. Let's see. I'm going to do. All right, there we go. Okay, so as I said before, my name's Jean. I'm actually fairly new to UIC. I've only been here since December, which now doesn't seem as new anymore every time I say it. But um, I've had a really great experience so far here at UIC. And even though I'm new to UIC, I'm not new to having some of these conversations with students. So I really enjoy doing that. And again, I'm going to present some information today, but I'd love to have more of a dialogue about it. So we'll get through some information, and then hopefully we can share some thoughts that we're all having. Okay, so choosing a major in my mind is like apples and oranges, right? Because I think we're often really comparing things that are very, very different. And I also think that's where students sort of get into a quandary about these things because, very, very infrequently do I see someone struggling between an accounting major and a music major, or a psychology major and a finance major necessarily. Um, those probably might be a little more similar, but I think one of the most challenging things about picking a major is we are trying to decide between things that are very different. There are majors that are very clear. It is very clear what that career path is. And then there are some majors that are not as clear. And I think that part of a student's comfort level, and honestly, the comfort level of those around them, as we were saying earlier, has to do with how clear the path is or how obvious that path is to a career. And in each major, there are different things that you may need to do in order to prepare to use that major in a substantial way in the outside world, right? And here's another thing I want you to keep in mind as we're talking today. Yes, they're apples and oranges, but I think that we put a lot of emphasis on an academic major. And here's the truth. I think that if you talk to most people who are working professionally today, have a job that they enjoy and it's paying their bills and they feel like they're contributing in very positive ways, I would tell you that most of those people are probably doing something not related to their undergraduate academic major. Okay, so the major is a starting point. The major doesn't necessarily dictate absolutely everything you will do the rest of your life. And I think it's important to note that. It seems like it does. We act like it does, but very often an academic major takes you in an initial step. And many people then build steps off of that major that often will lead them in completely different directions. And that's hard. I know that that's hard to hear. And that's hard to hear, especially if you're a first or second year, just trying to figure out how this whole like world of career and major and all this stuff kind of fits together. That level of uncertainty is very, very difficult I think, for people to be comfortable with. So some people are more comfortable with things that lead to a very definite path, and some people are not. Some people want things that have a little bit of flexibility or a little bit of serendipity to it or fate, that you're not necessarily sure exactly where that's going to lead. All right, my apple and orange picture. Let me go on. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about this idea of the apples and oranges, right? That we're comparing things that are very, very different. So I actually stole something from the University of Minnesota Career Development Center. They came up with a really, really interesting way of conceptualizing how we think about majors. And just what I mean, sort of how each different type of major leads to a career a little differently, okay? So the first one I'm going to talk about is the idea of a career-specific major. So career-specific majors are just that, very direct and specific preparation for a very particular job or occupation, okay? So sometimes it's often leads to licensure or certification in a particular area. So for example, If you're an education major, chances are you want to become a teacher, and that leads very nicely into that. You wouldn't be a nursing major unless you wanted to be a nurse, right? Accounting leads to being an accountant. Engineering, again, these things that are very specific, and that training is so specific, it is kind of melded almost directly to the major itself, you know. So again, these are obvious, right? These are things where you see your family for the first time at Thanksgiving, your first year of college, and you say, "Well, I'm an accounting major," and they go, oh, "Okay, yeah, no, I know what that person's going to do," or "I'm an engineering major." It's really, really, really clear. Okay. Second kind of major would be something they call a non-career specific major. So these are things that are not. Oh, so sorry. Wait, hold on. I'm sorry, I missed one here. What? Oh, there we go. This is the one I want to talk about for. Okay, I switched my slides. Okay, so the second one I want to talk about is a career-related major. So this is still kind of specific, but a little more broad in terms of, thinking about how you apply that major in a professional environment. So, for example, they're aimed at a specific field of employment, but not a particular job per se. Okay, so when I say computer science as a major, you can kind of conjure up in your head what somebody with a computer science major might do, right? You can see them doing it. Communication, same thing, art, music, criminal justice. There are a lot of really diverse kinds of opportunities that folks with these particular majors might pursue or might be qualified for. And given the subject matter, you kind of get an idea, like, especially like applied psychology. Well, okay, psychology, I can get a mental image of maybe somebody sitting at a couch or a desk and perhaps doing therapy with someone. Now, that's not obviously the only thing you can do with a psychology degree, but it's the path makes a certain amount of sense, although that path is very, very flexible. Okay. The third kind, which I'm going to go back now, I have these out of order here. The third kind is called a non career specific major. So these are really sort of those majors that, unfortunately, it's often those majors where when you tell someone that you're majoring in this, they say to you things like, "Well, what are you going to do with that?" Or "Are you going to teach?" Unfortunately, these are the majors that are a little bit harder to come up with how they fit into the outside world. Do they? Absolutely, they do. But experience in particular is very, very, very important with a non career specific major. Because in a non career specific major, you almost have to sort of meld and drive the career. Okay. So, for example, I think one of these. So, an English major, right? So very traditionally, you might think of that being sort of an academic discipline, right? Like sociology or philosophy or something like that. So, it's a little bit harder when you think of English. What are people doing? What are maybe they're writing, but writing isn't uh, a job title. Writer, it could be a job title, or that's a skill set you would maybe be using. But it's a little bit harder to sort of nail down exactly what someone might be doing with this particular major, like mathematics. Not every person who goes off and becomes is a math major goes to be a mathematician per se, right? Not everyone who is majors in French or Spanish just speaks that language for a living. I'm wondering if that makes sense. I know I can't see everybody. Right? I'm gonna make this. Does that kind of make sense? That there's a you get thumbs up or tech or put something in the chat like Gene. I have no idea what you're talking about, and that's okay too. Okay, so thank you. That makes sense that there would be some majors. Now, granted, all of the majors will require some level of experience to be successful in the world of work, right? Getting that kind of pre-professional experiences like internships and jobs. The thing with the non-career specific is that the experience you get almost sort of defines that major for you. Okay. So you might have an English major who, had some experience working in a bank, let's say, has a part-time job working for TCF Bank and maybe had that job the entire time that they were in school. So they finished their English degree and really liked working at the bank, really enjoyed it. And now that they have a degree and they've sort of presented themselves as a good writer and a good communicator, they're given a full-time job as a manager in that. So, you have some finance people who may be working in that field, but an English major can carve out their own kind of career path based on their interests. Like how do you want to use the skills that you've developed in that particular major? Same thing with history, sociology. These are all majors that you are getting and developing sets of skills that really are so broad that they can be applied to so many different jobs and so many different industries. And it's the experience that you get that helps it sort of result in a career path related degree. Okay, I'm going to let that sit for a little bit. Um, sorry, minimize that. Okay, let me see where I left off with I don't know what I did with the way I had everything set. Okay. All right. I like this little kid. I think he's funny. Pick the right major on the first try. It's one of my other little memes for today. But yeah, you don't have to do this. So this little kid's cute and all that, but you do not have to pick the right major on the first try. And you know what? Again, the world is not going to fall apart if you pick a major and you pursue it for a few semesters and it's not the right thing. Okay. The world isn't even going to fall apart if you graduate with a degree in a major and you go on to do something completely different. Okay, so you don't have to pick it on the first try, second try, third try. And this little guy has even no idea what that even means to pick the right major, right? Because it's the right major for you. And again, you can always change, you can always reboot, you can always reset. Okay, so let's some things to kind of consider here. The majority of majors are non-career specific. They are. And again, like I said, there's no one size fits all approach. Even if you've made a decision, chances are you might change at some point, like I said, for many different reasons. And that's okay. Even if you come to the end of the road and you finish the degree and you went, you know what, that's not quite what I wanted. There's lots of different ways that you can change gears and that you can change directions. And if you need some help with that, obviously, that is something that we are here for in career services to help you sort of rethink that or repackage it in such a way that will help lead to something that you'd like to do. And again, experience is important no matter what you choose. And majors are more about careers. And I really believe this, that again, we put a lot of emphasis on it, a lot of stress on it, and it really just is not going to, the thing we choose right now is honestly not going to dictate the course of our life. It's the first step in many steps and many decisions that you're going to be making. And I think the bigger question really is what you want your career to look like ultimately and what you want your life to look like. I think it's really important. Think about this idea of planning for a career. What we really do is planning for life, planning for our lives, and what we want those lives to look like in the kind of balance that we want to strike. Knowing again, like I said before, that nothing is guaranteed. There's nothing that is an absolute golden ticket, no matter what. Because if it's not the right thing for you, then it doesn't matter. So you have to pick the things that are right for you. And I seem to be stuck here. Oh, there we go. Okay, here's my other meme here. I saw this earlier today. I thought it was pretty funny. Is this glass half full or half empty? The college major edition, right? So a psychology major says, how does this glass of water make you feel? The nutrition major said, there isn't enough water here for a person's daily needs. The engineering major, this glass has a 50% overall inefficiency. Business major, will the glass sell better marketed as half full or half empty? The English major, what is the symbolism of the glass not being completely full? Women's studies, would you give a man a full glass? Undeclared, I'm not really sure. Can you ask me later? These are just kind of fun. They're just kind of silly. Law, what do you want it to be? How do I know the glass is there? This glass is 50% in the red, and the water doesn't complement the air above it. So this is just sort of a silly thing, but it really does, I think, illustrate very nicely how, when you're thinking about majors, there's a lot of things that sort of go into how we do some level of self-assessment to see if that major is right for us. Okay, because yes, there's, every major gives a different perspective on something, gives us different skill sets, gives us different content information, and way of analyzing information, way of writing, way of communicating. So it's important to have a sense of, not only can I use the skills that are in this major, but is it something that I'm interested in? Is this something, which one of these glass interpretations here speak to you? Does that seem like you? Does it seem like something that I want to spend a lot of time talking about and thinking about? So I just thought that was cool today. Um, so I want to talk just for a couple quick minutes about the idea of self-assessment and how do we go through sort of thinking about who we are and what we want. Because if I'm saying that, indeed, we have to start with us, right? We have to see what is the best fit for us, what's most important to us, as people, as humans, as students, as scholars. If we do the work there, it's a little bit easier to assess the kind of major that we might be happy in, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to be able to go to these classes. You have to be able to do well in them. So if they're not interesting enough for you to pull your butt out of bed to do it, then it's really pointless. It's really sort of a waste. So it's really important that you sort of do the front work to think about those things. So first thing is I think that we want to think about values. So we think about values in terms of work values. Work values are things that absolutely need to be in a job or a career for you to be happy, for you to be satisfied. So I think that these things change over time, but I also think that values can help. I'm sorry, majors. Majors should help you clarify what some of your work values are, right? So, for example, you want to ask yourselves questions like, what kind of environment do I want to work in? Do I want to work indoors, outdoors, with a team, by myself? Do I want to be collaborating? Do I like high energy? Would I rather work by myself? Um, do you want to have a boss, or do you expect to be your own boss? How do other people react to your job? It's a really important work value for a lot of people, that their job is seen as something that's prestigious, um, that people respect you, that people are impressed by what you do. Um, how do you want others to view you? Do you want to be viewed as a problem solver, a helper? Do you want to be viewed as somebody who is doing good work, or um, you know, when you think about yourself at work, like what does that look like, and what do you want others to think about who you are in that particular position? Other values have to do with money, how much money someone makes, work-life balance. Is this a job that takes up all of my time, or do I have time to pursue other things in my life? And I had a woman that I worked with a really long time ago, just used to ask this question, and I love it. I think at the end of the day, an important thing to think about is, what kind of problems do you want to solve? And if you look at any job on the planet, literally any job on the planet, you can identify what problem in society or in life is this particular job solving or helping others solve. The second thing, really important to take a look at, is the idea of skills. And again, majors should help you develop the skill sets that you want to use in the workplace. And we could go through 5,000 skills, writing skills, critical thinking, managing projects, being artistic, using technology, the list just sort of goes on and on. This is from 2006. And I know it seems super old, right? Because it is, but it also isn't. This is from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. So NACE is like the organization that us in career services look to sort of help us do our jobs a little bit better. So back in 2006, and I purposely used the 2006 one. Back in 2006, there was a survey done. If you look at the survey from 2020, it's legitimately the same list. It might use different words, and maybe they're in a different order, but for as long as the 25 years that I've been in career services and helping students think about these things, this list has been pretty much the same. These are the skills that employers want, no matter what kind of job. Communication skills, honesty, integrity, strong work ethic, analytical skills, flexibility and adaptability. Like even right now, right? There isn't one person on the planet working who has not had to be flexible and adaptable in, sort of pivoting for that word. We talk about it all the time. If we had to pivot to online services and things, there's a one person who hasn't had to figure out how to do this. Interpersonal skills, motivation, initiative, technical, computer, social media, whatever, however you want to say it, some kind of technical skills, being detail oriented and good organizational skills. The third thing you really want to think a lot about are your interests. Majors should either support or help you explore an interest. And, these are really simple questions, but I think it's hard. Like I've worked with students for a long time, and sometimes it's hard for students to even think about their interests, because you go through school all these years, and unless you had a specific, extracurricular thing that you really enjoy doing, sometimes this is hard for students to wrap their brain around. Especially, we get thrown into all these classes and, well, I have to do math, I have to do science, I have to do, literature, I have to do all this stuff. But like if you could only do some classes, what would they be? You know, if you could have changed and just taken, if you could have not taken math ever, or, only taken science courses, would you have done that? Um, so what basically do you like to do? I think truthfully, a lot of the careers that we end up finding ourselves in at its really, really basic level, you can find things that are so much a part of your personality and a part of who you are, that those careers end up including things that you've done your whole life, right? Maybe it's accidental, maybe it's on purpose. I'll share a story that when I was in, we were all getting ready to go to college, in early years in college. I was the person who helped edit things for people. I wrote everybody I know, I wrote their resume for them. And I was like a freshman or a sophomore in college. It was just something I enjoyed doing. And I enjoyed learning about what people did. And um, I enjoyed hearing about why people did the things that they did. So I think even way back when I was a lot younger, it was something that sort of was an interest of mine. And, work fascinated me, and jobs. And I loved working. I did so many jobs growing up, and when I was in high school and when I was in college. And I loved to sort of connect with people on those jobs to figure out more about who they were and how they ended up there. So I think, very often if I were to ask you 10 years from now, you'd say, yeah, the things that I didn't even really think were actual things that were career interests, I'm finding that the work I do is an outlet for that for me. Um, Granted, you can't always find all of your interests in your work, so you want to make sure that you strike that balance. And if there's interests that you cannot live out in your job, you want to make sure that you find ways to do that outside. What are things you want to get better at? You can, again, look at courses, extracurricular work that you've done. You really want to do a good inventory of what are the things that you found yourself most attracted to. All right, so the second step then, so that's sort of the first step. You do a little self-assessment, sort of figure out exactly where you are and what's important to you. The second step then would be to start exploring some majors. So, there's some really easy ways to do this. Is the first way, if you're really undecided, if you really have no idea whatsoever, go to the catalog, look at the list of majors that are open to you, right? And you're lucky to be at a place that has a lot of majors, really interesting majors. And, I think UIC's done a great job in sort of trying to keep up with the kinds of programs and majors that are really marketable. So I would start there. Cross off the ones absolutely no way you want to be an engineering major. Not going to happen. Nothing math, nothing science. Or, yeah, I don't want anything having to do with writing, or I know I don't. I had a Psych 101 class in high school and I didn't like it, so I'm going to take that off the list right away. And then maybe make yourself a short list of some things that you'd like to know more about. You can schedule time to discuss those options, read course descriptions, review requirements, take a look at whether or not you actually think you would like to sit through those classes. Okay, read them carefully and try to see, like, is this something that yeah, I think might be kind of interesting. And you want to do as much research as possible. Um, I've got a couple of things here, and we have the list of folks here today. So if we can always send out the PowerPoint as well, so you can see some of these links. But honestly, this is just off our career services website under the career exploration. There's a bunch of resources in there that you can begin to shop around, get some definitions of career paths, some job titles related to certain majors. It's really not hard to find information related to some of the possible career paths that you're looking at. So good place to, again, start with the major, then look up some potential career paths and do a little information, do a little research on that. You can also research career paths and doing some informational interviewing. And informational interviewing is finding someone, we can, any of our staff can talk to you about how to do that too, but finding someone who's actually working in the field. Maybe somebody maybe a fellow student who's doing an internship in a particular area, and talk to them about it. Ask to carve out a little time and have a phone conversation or a Zoom coffee right now and see if they'll tell you a little bit more about what they do and how they got there. Getting experience is also a great way to research possible career paths. Actually putting yourself in part-time jobs, internships, volunteer opportunities that will sort of immerse you in that field a little bit. And again, as I mentioned, there's other online resources even outside of our website that can help you do that. So, eventually you will narrow it down and eventually you will kind of decide on what major you'd like to select. The best way to do it is begin to take those courses. The courses are a good way, of telling it not everyone's in the same situation. Some students have, a little bit more room in their schedule to play with than others. But, if you take that first course in that major and you don't like it, then that's probably not the major for you. If you love it and you think it's fascinating, then I think that's a really good reason to keep going. Um, and I think here's the thing too, like when I caught myself saying like, and you love it, it's okay if you don't love it, all right? And it's okay if you are not sure about it, but you'd like to know more. One of the things that we talk about a lot about careers, and people have talked about this for years and years and years, this idea of passions, like, oh, you have to find your passion. Well, not everybody has a passion. And I'll be honest with you, not everyone has a passion that has to do with their career. So again, I think people get sort of stuck sometimes thinking, well, it has to be something that like is, the best thing I've ever seen or best thing I've ever heard. And, I can't live without this, I think I want students to really think about putting things into perspective. You know, what is the first thing you want to try? What is something that's interesting enough that it's important to you enough that you want to spend a substantial period of your life, substantial amount of time in your life studying and learning more about? So in terms of narrowing it down, again, looking for ways to get experience is a great way to begin exploring that major further. Internships, volunteer, leadership positions on campus, and other part-time positions. And I think a great thing to do if you are not sure is to have an individual discussion with one of our career advisors. We have a whole big group of amazing people on our staff who are experienced. Everybody on the career services staff has spent a long time talking to students about how to make these decisions because it isn't an easy decision to make. And I also think it's a very personal individual decision. Again, I know that people are feeling a lot of pressure and anxiety talking to, lots of different people about what they should do. But again, at the end of the day, you are the person who has to go to those classes. You are the person who has to figure out how that major translates to the world of work for you, you know. And again, I really believe that folks can be successful with any major they choose. It's just about that planning. It's about the planning and the research along the way, and always trying to make decisions based on you, based on the things that are important to you. So I'm going to, for a second, I'm going to stop share. I'm going to get everybody back on the screen here. I'm sorry. So there's a couple things here. Okay. Yeah. So just a couple comments. Is it okay? Let's see. There's one question. I really appreciate what you said about how having a non-specific major can allow you to curate a career based on your experiences. But can you elaborate a little on how exactly this works? Okay. All right. So that's a really good question, Isabel. All right. Let me think about this for. Let's go back to some of the non-specific majors. All right. So okay. There we go. Oh, where'd it go? Okay. I guess I just got to go back here.
I guess like I don't know if this helps, but I
Yeah.
am totally willing to elaborate. Basically, I just want to know how experience can lead you to a job. I know that like you can help build up your resume with your experiences, and I know that experience can get you skill, but like how can you sort of translate those skills into a job?
Okay, that's a really good. I think I got your question then. Okay, so um, let's let's look at three. Okay, so I'm going to paint like a picture for you. Okay, of three different. I want you to think about three psychology majors, and I'm just picking psychology because that's probably the thing I know most intimately because I was a psych major. Okay, so three psychology majors, and these are three people that like I knew, right? That I know exist in the world. Three psychology majors. So psychology major number one is very interested in potentially becoming a counselor, becoming a therapist. Okay. So psychology major number one decides to, volunteer at a domestic violence shelter and get some counseling, crisis counseling, and some experience with uh, case management, right? They decide to do some research with a professor on a topic of interest. So they kind of get involved in some research. They are, maybe got involved or is president of the psychology club on campus, um, and has really sort of always sought out things that will sort of further their interest in being in a helping profession. Okay, so that's one. Psychology major number two decided to maybe take a slightly different path. So psychology major number two said, okay, well, I like working with people and I, I'm sort of interested in counseling, but not really interested in being a therapist, right? So psychology major number two decides to get involved a little differently on campus, right? Starts working in, student government, say, or takes a bunch of leadership roles on campus and maybe joins a sorority or a fraternity and gets some experience there and then, leaves and or gets an internship on campus working with a um, student activities office on campus. And then upon graduation, after all those experiences, have said to them, well, I think I'd really like to work in a college setting. I think I'd really like to work in higher ed. So their first job out of college is as a resident advisor, and where they're kind of using those counseling skills a little bit, but not necessarily as a therapist per se. And then psychology major number two goes on to get a degree in higher ed and begins working as an administrator in a college. Okay. Psychology major number three decides to do something very different. So, they were really interested in sort of the people aspect of things, but not necessarily interested in one-on-one counseling or advising skills. Like that wasn't something they really liked doing. But again, they did like working with people, and along the way was maybe working at an office, working in business, and started to kind of get an interest going in that as well. So psychology major number three majors in psychology, but decides to minor in business and actually ends up minoring and doing some work in academic work in human resources. Along the way, finds an internship in human resources and begins working as a benefits administrator at at a company, and eventually works their way up to being the vice president of human resources at a company. And that was done. So that was really long. I'm sorry, but all three of those things are people who have taken a degree and decided to pursue different types of experiences that built different sets of skills. So here you have somebody who, the number one, decided to, do something a little bit more traditional and more sort of therapy related. So they decided to get experiences that would help hone those skills. Psychology major number two was sort of on that boat, but what wasn't interested in being a therapist or working with um, maybe folks who were struggling with mental illnesses. Maybe they wanted to help, but in a different way. So they took a path of higher education and helping and connecting with people there and building up skills perhaps in project management, program development, student development skills, um, and took it on that path. And then psychology major number three, still with that degree and really maybe really enjoyed that degree, but wanted to use it in kind of a different way. So you see psychology majors working in business, getting different kinds of skills as, learning about, employment law, learning about how people work and how people work together and maybe even moderating conflicts and getting those kinds of skills through those internship and part-time job experiences that then led to a different kind of job. Does that make sense as well? Sorry, that's a
That
lot.
was actually really, really helpful. I
Okay, good.
appreciate that so much.
Okay, good. Yeah,
I
I like
definitely
to use it. I like, and that isn't necessarily a non-specific degree, but psychology for me bounces back and forth between something that's career related and non-career specific. I can't decide what category I want to put that in. Because I think it probably could go in either really. Because it's for some, psychology feels like more of an academic related, like English and philosophy and sociology. But then when you talk about psychology, we have a very practical application idea of psychology as well. So it may not have been the best example, but yeah. So you can build you can build a major for yourself really that is really fueled by the experiences that you have. Obviously you're going to get content information, that's going to relate directly to particular careers. But I guess the thing that I would propose is that we still have a lot of flexibility in that. Um, cool.
Yeah, I just really want to thank you. That was really helpful, especially because I think the way that sort of my parents treat majors and the way that I've thought about majors is sort of like the self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, okay, if I'm going to be an anthropologist, that means that I'm going to be Indiana Jones. But like, that's definitely not the case, and it doesn't have to be that way. And so that's why I just really appreciate your example.
No, I'm glad that helped. I mean, we do really have, some very like, I guess, stereotypical ideas, and there, so much influences, right? Do you know that when Grey's Anatomy came on the scene, the amount of med school applications that like shot up, you know, I mean, there was this direct line because everybody wanted to be Meredith Grey, right? Because she's really cool and had kind of a tragic life, but we're like, oh, that'd be cool to be a surgeon. That seems like fun, but it's a lot of work. And I think that we have on our head these ideas about what these things are supposed to look like. But again, I have a psychology degree. My mom used to tell me all the time, like, oh, Jean's going to be a psychologist. I'm like, I had no interest in being a psychologist. Yeah, there were other things that I wanted to do, and in fact, I was on the road to becoming a therapist. That's where all of my experiences were sort of in that direction. And then I had, my first job, I was working in an inpatient, psychiatric unit in a hospital. And at that moment, it just was not the right fit for me. I knew it wasn't. And so I had to reboot and I had to figure out, okay, well, what are the pieces I do like from this? And what are the pieces I don't like? And can I throw the things out I don't like and develop more of the things that I do like? So that was very helpful. But I'll tell you, I have friends that do, I have people I know people with engineering degrees that are career advisors now. And, one of my really good friends got a nursing degree, like, and is now the dean of students at is now the dean of students at the college that I used to work at. So she literally like she graduated nursing school. She was like, I am not doing that. And started working in residence life, started working in housing, and has worked her way up. 20 years later, she's a dean of students, and she loves it. It's a great fit for her, and especially during COVID, she's pretty. She thinks really like a professional. Hang on, there's a question in here somewhere. How do majors relate to master's degrees? Good question. If a certain job requires a master's degree, for example, practicing social work, do you need a certain major? Um, that's a good question. So that's kind of a mix or match kind of a thing. So, I was talking about my friend who's the engineer. who worked as a chemical engineer for a while. And then she went back and got a master's degree in higher ed and completely pivoted, completely changed what she was doing. So you don't necessarily have to have an undergraduate degree in the major that your graduate degree would be in, if that makes sense. So if you know, have a business degree and you want to get a degree, you want to get an MSW, you can do that. You know, the only thing you want to be careful of is sometimes there are prerequisites you have to take. So again, I will share a personal story. While I was trying to figure out what the heck to do with my psychology degree, I actually thought about getting an MBA in human resources. That was a possible idea. So I, with my undergrad in psych, going to an MBA, there were some classes I did need to take. So I needed to take accounting and I needed to take marketing. And if it gives you any indication of how much I liked accounting and marketing, I don't have an MBA in human resources right now. So I couldn't even like get through the accounting class at the community college that I took after I finished my degree. So, you know, when it's not right, it's not right, believe me. Um, but yeah, so sometimes there's some things you might have to take. Although I will say that a lot of master's degree programs now do have a lot of flexibility and have, you know, things built right into them, or a couple of special courses for people who did not graduate in that discipline that would get you up to speed in the things you would need to know. But again, like if you want to be a social worker, you can come at that from a lot of different things. You know, I would say an anthropology degree, psychology degree, liberal studies, um, sociology. You know, there's a bunch of different degrees that will sort of meld nicely into it. But if you were to get a degree in something else, and then that's it's not a tragedy. It should it should work out okay. But again, um, there may just be some things that you have to do to catch up a little bit. Does that answer your question, Shani? Cool. All right. Other questions? You guys have great questions. Yeah, we see a lot of people thinking very seriously about graduate school now, and I think that happens sometimes when you know, we look at an economy that feels a little, the whole world really feels a little kind of shaky right now. You know, what would you say to? Oh, what would you say to people who claim getting a BA in psych will not lead to a lot of opportunity? Well, Jessica, I would tell them I had a BA in psych and I had lots of jobs, so they can just take a walk. You know, no, I'm kidding. Um, yeah, I mean, no one can claim that. I'll be honest with you. Like I said, no one can say that because it's not a fair question to say to anybody because we make our own opportunities, which is I guess what I'm trying, maybe the overall message here, what I'm trying to say. You know, if you decide what you want to do with that degree and you begin to build some experiences along the way that will complement what's happening in that degree, then you'll be fine. You know, it really all just depends on the choices you make. Now, again, if you want to do, um, we'll talk about the psych thing for a while. I mean, yeah, if you want to do therapy, if you want to be a therapist and you want to work in that kind of arena, yes, you will most likely eventually need to go get a master's degree. You know, but that's the only thing that I would say for certain. You know, I know a lot of people working in all sorts of industries with a bachelor's degree in psychology, and you know, it just you can set that for yourself. So I would tell them to mind their own business is what I would say. Because only you control that. Only you control what's happening. Where's the best place to research careers and majors? Researching the different pathways to becoming a post-secondary professor and the like. Oh, okay, so there's one. If you go to that link, and I can put that link in the. Yeah, I think I have it up here somewhere. I'll put the link in the chat again here so you guys can just do that. There's a whole bunch of really good resources on our webpage right here. Um, you know, and there's like how, you know, occupational outlook handbook. What can I do with this major? Tons of great job titles that you can sort of, you know, snoop around about and try to get some better ideas about what you can do. Um, and I'm a big fan of the Google search, you know. So if I, so if you want to be a college professor, You could Google like, paths to becoming a college professor, or, these are things I just do all the time, that can get you some of the information that you need as well. So any of the ones from that link that I just put in the chat, and you're free to, hit it and then bookmark it or copy and paste it somewhere. Any of those is a great start. And I think if I can pull it up here. Let's see, how would you go about contacting someone working in the particular field? That's a great question, Flora. And networking is hard, but I think a great place to start would be attending any events here at UIC. And obviously they're going to be virtual for a while, but any events here, and we put them on, the different departments put them on. Oh yeah, UIC newsletters are helpful. Events where you can meet people, absolutely. I think it can start here at UIC, because very often we're bringing professionals in as speakers, and alumni come in as speakers to talk a little bit about what they do and how they got. So that's one thing for sure you definitely want to do. So definitely check into that. Let's see. Hang on, Tan wants me to put that thing in the chat again. Oh, shoot. You know what? Yeah, hold on. I did. You're right, Tan. I did it wrong. I'm so glad you're here, Tan. I only sent it to people in the waiting room, and there's nobody in the waiting room. So I don't know what the heck I did. Okay. There we go. Okay, there it is. Sorry. So yeah, so just trying to talk to as many people as possible. LinkedIn is also a really good resource, and I would start putting together a LinkedIn profile now, and use LinkedIn as a great way to connect with other people in the field. You can connect with your fellow students. You can connect with other UIC alumni who are working in areas that you're interested in. So say you are a psychology major and you want to get into human resources. So, I keep using that example. You want to get into HR, you can do a search on LinkedIn, human resources, UIC, and it'll pull up potential contacts, and you can invite them to connect, and you can begin a conversation about that. Handshake, you can also connect with lots and lots of people on Handshake as well. You can not only connect with employers, but you can connect with other students in the Chicago area, both at UIC and at other schools who may just be graduating and out there sort of working in the field that you're interested in. Also, Handshake is a good thing, and LinkedIn absolutely is a good one. And we can help you set up a LinkedIn profile too. And I think that your professors, Isabel, great. Yes, obviously, absolutely your professors, because your professors are most likely people who are working in the field or who have been working in the field. And you should whatever major you end up in, you should definitely get to know the professors in your major, because that's how they can be helpful, is if they know you and you come to their office hours and you talk a little bit, and they may be able to connect you with some people that they know from their professional life as well. But yeah, academic departments are great. And they're also always having events where they're bringing people back to campus for discussions about things. So that's a great way to connect. The finding people in your field, that's a process, like you'll know them when you see them. You'll know them when you meet them, that, ooh, this is a good contact. I need to have a conversation with this person at some point. You guys have great questions. Others? Questions? Thank you. So, if you do have other questions, please, here's my email. Here's my direct email. I'll put that right in the chat box here. Please feel free to email me. If you want to set up an appointment with one of the staff members, absolutely. You can email me and I'll get that set up for you. If you just have some random question about something, I'm happy to help. I really do appreciate all of your participation and your attention today. I really do. You have great questions. And like I said, don't lose heart, and don't get too stressed out again about this sort of idea that the thing you pick now is going to make or break your entire life, because it's not. And because there's always time for rebooting, there's always time for changing, and you want to pay attention to you and what you need. And I get that people in your life, maybe family members, people who are financing, your degree and things like that. I understand that they have a place of influence, and that 9 times out of 10, they have your best interests in heart as well. But maybe what they don't have is all of the information. So as much information as you can share about the ways that you're looking to use this degree, or that you're interested, or that this is an important thing for you to do. Um, as much as you can sort of keep those things in mind, and put that in your narrative in terms of talking about what you want to do or who you want to be. I think it just makes the conversation better, and there's more understanding, especially like I said, when you're dealing with family members or parents that are sort of questioning some ideas. So, and we're always here for you to talk to too. All right, I think we're good if no more questions. You guys are welcome. It was really nice talking to you today. There's lots of things going on. October is a big month here in career services, so stay abreast uh, on our website and on Handshake. And this is October's graduate school month. So there's lots of grad school stuff. October is also Careers and Student Affairs Month. So there'll be a couple of panels coming up about that. And just keep your eyes open, because we're always adding new things. We're always coming up with more ideas for things to do. So please take advantage of all that stuff. So I'm glad it was helpful. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording here. I could figure out how to do that. Oh, there we go. Or just maybe hit